It's all good.
My arm feels weird. Sonic City Council.
Hello, the Sonic City Council is now in session. Thank you so much for inviting us into your headphones, your car, your mind. Citizens, we appreciate you as always. What up, Davy Sipes?
Jesse Davidson, I bid you good morrow, gentle sir.
Oh my, how regal of you.
And may I say, dear meatbags, a delight. Huzzah. Huzzah to thee.
Huzzah.
Bang that motherfucker. Ooh, yeah! All right! Yeah, Sonic City Council! I'm sitting in the front row. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Chet from our studio audience right there.
Oh, okay. Oh, I like Chet.
Whoa, I've been here since the first episode. Whoa!
Chet sounds like Steve Carell when he's doing that high-pitched,
Yeah, Chet wears
constipated
tight
voice.
pants and he works at the electronics store. So.
Oh, man.
There's a lot of Steve Carell stuff. He's like, I look like Steve Carell too. Shut up, Chet.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That also is reminiscent of Brick from Anchorman when he, I hear their periods attract bears. That line.
Bears can smell them.
Yeah. You hear that? Now you're putting the whole office in jeopardy. I'll quote that movie all day.
You sure can and you sure should. I mean, it's the gospel according to Jesus Christ, not to be blasphemous.
No, heaven forbade.
Did I do that right? Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, you did it your way.
I
like
did it
Frank
my
Sinatra.
way. Yeah. Oh, I was thinking like Old Navy. Or like Frank Sinatra, who said it first.
Is it weird that, like, I don't want to shop at Old Navy because I think that's where old people shop and I don't ever want to get old? Is that, like, can I let that out here? Are you okay with hearing that, podcast listener? Like, I don't know.
This council is your safe space first, bro.
I'm just saying, like, I think of Old Navy as the same way I think of drinking plain unsweetened iced tea. Like, I'd rather just drink water. I'm never going to do that.
I was about to say, that's fucking refreshing.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I think of that as, like, that's what, like, my parents or older people drink, and I just don't want to be that person.
I'm older people. I drink that shit. I fuck with that all day on the reg.
I'm just saying. Just saying, old buddy.
No, I think that's fine. I don't know if it's an age thing, but it quite potentially could be an age-based, a generational predisposition, if you don't mind the anthropological terms.
Right. Well, and even Old Navy, like, that doesn't strike me as...
It has old in the fucking title. It has old in the title.
I didn't really think about it that way, but yeah, it does. It does.
And navies have been around forever, so it's like doubling down on the old.
Is double old.
You double deucing on the old.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah. But I think, and that's what it was at first.
Yeah.
Are we going to really, okay, semi-dive deep? Well, that's fine. So did you know where they come from, right? Old Navy is like a gaff offshoot, if I'm not mistaken.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I have no
We're going to have
idea.
to juggle it. But I'm pretty for certains. And now it's just become its own separate, just fantastic brand of, like, people with big personalities who love to dress plainly. That's who shops at Old Navy. That's what I get from the commercials. I would wear stuff from there, but I don't like big stores with loud music and people full of them, stores in them.
Right.
I hate it when people are full of stores. Let me say, enough with that, people.
Oh, jeez. No, I hate it when people are full of stores, too.
It's so annoying.
He's so busy around the holidays.
All the time.
Can't get anywhere.
Can't get anywhere. Thank you.
So, bringing it back to reality for
Okay,
a
fine.
second. Today...
You have something on your face.
I do. You have something on your face.
Yeah.
Something I did want to talk about with this, not to get too heavy or serious,
Break
but
it down, man. Break it down.
we are located in the lovely and beautiful Antelope Valley, which is located in the high desert of Southern California in LA County. And as you know,
It's like the upper groin of Los Angeles, if you will.
And to your right, you'll find, I'm doing my tour guide voice,
Yeah.
trying to find new streams of income, that I could get good at,
You would be a great docent at like a museum.
Yeah, exactly. But, just talking about this, like COVID cases are going up and like, this is obviously not a mass gathering. We've got 3 people in here with, me.
And I don't even count him.
No, because I mean, who's he? He only gets one shout.
It's only his house and his studio.
Yeah, it's only maximum Max Taylor.
Ah!
That's one shout out per episode. I got the one in.
Oh, his name is my kryptonite. Oh, I can't intro now.
Melting.
Okay. I'm melting.
Yeah. So
What a world.
Yeah, what a world.
What a
indeed.
fucking world.
There's not a lot of people in here, but it's, we both, are wanting to be safe about things. And I don't know, I felt a little bit weird just doing this, on a consistent basis and not wearing a mask. And I kind of felt a little bit like a dick about it. So it was just kind of like for our own peace of mind and to just, I don't know, this with the situation getting worse, it's like, let's just be safe, wear these, and who gives a fuck? It's, we're still talking, we're still hanging out, we're still having a good time.
It's a lot of things. It's exactly what you said. On my end, I feel like it's part of the solidarity with everybody who's got to work like a regular job all day.
Yes.
Like, it's like we really appreciate that. Like being able to go to the grocery store anytime like I need to. Like they're on regular hours still and shit like that, And it's like I mostly work from home. This is the only time I really have to be with other people. You guys are my favorite people, so my life is pretty blessed in a lot of ways. And I feel like this is the small. This is a gesture either way.
Yeah.
But the reality is that I also read. I'm a germaphobe. Everybody who you're gonna learn.
Yeah.
Don't fucking touch me without asking. Once we're friends, same rules apply.
Yeah.
Do they not? Yeah, they do. It's like, did you wash your hands? Okay, cool. Give me a hug.
No, I know.
It's so fucking weird. I hate that. But did I have a point about that? Oh, Deborah Birx.
Yeah.
Who's somebody I respect because she's a goddamn fucking scientist, like a big deal of a scientist, people. Put away your politics. I believe in science. Science gets politicized, but the science is this. Now, because the transmission rate is so high, there's so many people infected, you can now statistically assume that anyone you come in contact with outside of your house is infected. That's just where we live. That's not across the country, so I did also want to kind of hedge that a little bit. We live in LA, which is the most populous county in the whole country, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any statistics for that, but it sounds.
I'm pretty
true.
sure it's like 12 million people or something like that.
Yeah, I know it's definitely one of the
crazy.
highest. Yeah, it's a lot, and
we're always wearing very little clothes, and we're always touching on each other in public places because we're LA libtards.
Definitely. Yeah, we're both snowflakes, obviously.
We're a bunch of delicate creatures. Sorry.
Look at them drinking kombucha.
Kombucha on the beach in their short shorts. Go play hacky sack.
Yeah.
And they're right. They're right to tell us. Go play hacky sack with derision, if that's how you feel.
Yeah, I've never...
Free country, motherfucker!
I mean, I've never hackied a sack in my life, but, hey.
I can tell because we'd never say that in hacky sack. We never say, you want to hacky a sack with me?
Yeah,
I'm
obviously.
Smiling. Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can definitely hear it. I'm not up on the nomenclature.
Yeah.
But anyway, so until things get less crazy, we're going to just do this. And I know that, obviously you, the podcast listener, fellow citizen, you're cool with it. You're coming here for the content and the conversation. You're not coming here to see what, this ugly mug looks like a little bit less ugly covered up.
First of all, you're a handsome man. Second of all, we gotta make it fun, goddammit. It's a sexy game. Now you can't see. You're starting to forget what I look like, and you forgot how pretty my mouth is, so it's a little mystery.
Yeah.
Very excited.
Yeah, keeping the
you
spice
should put
going.
your mask on at home. Even if you're home, just chilling in your room, just put your mask on. Like, we got our three of us got our masks on.
Yeah, just join us.
Hot.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, that's why we're doing it.
So, getting that out of the way.
We purged that.
What do we
have to spew now?
Well, we are here today because we are talking to the lovely and talented Felicity Feline and her bandmate. Oh, we're going to cut that. Hold on.
No, we're not Stephen Feline.
No, it's not Stephen Feline. Hold on.
We don't have to cut it. We're still talking about it.
Well,
let's say Felicity. Felicity?
Hold on.
Did you just say her name was Felicity?
No, I'm Googling.
Jujalit.
I need to get the last name right.
Steven. I'm going to guess.
I think it's McLaughlin.
I was going to say something with an M, but I was going to say Stephen Millerstein.
Oh, jeez.
Stephen Molotov. Whoa, Felicity Feline and Stephen Mixomatosis.
Okay. So, I'm going to say McLaughlin. I'm going to trust that I got the Bandcamp info right. So, yeah. Well, today we're talking to Felicity Feline, and her bandmate Stephen McLaughlin, and together they formed the mighty two-piece that is Constraints of Light. And they have a new EP that they've written in COVID. And talking to them about that, how they wrote it, a little bit about their band, but also talking to them because, I wanted to get Felicity's story because we talk about it at the, we're going to talk about it at the beginning of the podcast.
What are we going to talk about?
Well, basically, we've kind of met through just running into each other in the music scene, things like that, and at shows and seeing various bands and when I was working shows. And it's funny because I felt like we were just kind of being pushed to keep in contact with each other, as
Sure.
it's like, hey, I keep running into you all the time.
You again.
Yeah. And I wanted to talk to her to get her perspective on life because she's someone who's in the music.
Alive.
She's alive. She's a human. Breathes oxygen, exhales carbon dioxide, as the rest of us do.
Perspires.
She's also somebody that is transitioning pretty much into the music industry and nutrition industries and has done that from primarily the adult industry. And talking about, the stigmas that come with that, how people perceive her as a musician. These are all things that I want to know. And
I don't understand why nutrition carries the stigma it does. I mean, I don't like to eat healthy, but I don't judge other people.
Yeah, to each his own. But yeah, it's something to where I feel like people need to be humanized when they are dehumanized at times.
That's what we're here for, goddammit.
Yeah, and it's I want to get your perspective unfiltered on life, and I feel like it helps everybody getting to kind of be in somebody else's shoes for a minute. So
this is what I feel like part of doing this with you, my man, is taking back the internet. Take back
yeah.
It's take back the night. No, it's maybe I just hope that just maybe somebody will be like, oh, what's this? Oh, it's that person. I left a comment on her page yesterday. Oh, what's she doing now? And then maybe they listen and maybe they change the way they act and feel a little bit.
Yeah,
that would just be that. One person doing that would be great. But either way, we had a great convo, right?
Yeah. So
buttons.
So buttons.
You always leave me that.
Yes. So anyway, without further ado, let's get to it.
Bada bing.
All right, Felicity and Stephen, what's up? Thanks for joining us today.
Hey guys. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, this is awesome. Quick story on just how I got to meet Felicity, just in the random small world that is the music business and the music scene.
Spill it.
We actually met it was one of the Farewell Dillinger shows in 2016. And I'd happened to just run into you at the audience, and we started talking.
Yeah.
And just talking about music and that you were a drummer, and I'm like, oh cool, I'm a bass player, and we were both into metal, and then ended up running into you again at NAMM just randomly and said hi, and you were off doing a bunch of different things. And then one of the last times I was working the rock and roll fantasy camp in LA, we all went to the Rainbow afterwards to hang out, and found my way upstairs into that little vampire's loft and happened to sit down next to some friends, and you were on the left of me, and I went, hey, you're that person I keep running into at Dillinger shows in NAMM.
Yeah.
How's it going? And I was like, well, this is obviously the universe telling me that, I should keep in touch with this person. So here we are recording a podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sweet. Yeah. So
the universe is funny in that way.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. So, and I wanted to actually talk to you about this because we haven't had a chance to yet. We're both, fellow metalheads, and that's kind of the music we grew up on, and hardcore, punk and metal and things like that. Yeah. When did that love start for you? Because I know you were drumming since you were a kid, in elementary school. But when did you start getting into metal and heavy music?
Yeah, so I would say my background started in classic rock because my dad was really into classic rock and Beatles, Eagles, Bob Seger, I got more into progressive and psychedelic rock. I just felt more connected, with Pink Floyd and the Doors and Jimi Hendrix. And then I found Porcupine Tree. Ooh. And some more prog-ish bands that I got really into. And then I had found Black Sabbath. And then from Black Sabbath, that kind of segued me into heavier stuff. I mean, Pantera came into the mix, Slayer, and then I got really into Lamb of God and Opeth. So it kind of just started from there. But I mean, I would say my roots were definitely rock for sure. But I connected more with heavier music, I think, because I have kind of an extreme personality, and the metal just soothed that part of me a lot and kind of balanced out my masculine and feminine side. So I just felt really great like listening to metal, and it was a good thing for me in during those times. It was like a pacifier for my emotions.
Right. Yeah. And it was kind of the same for me in that, like, finding it just kind of soothed me when other stuff just wouldn't, when other forms of music, just didn't reach me at a young age.
I liked how it made other people very, like, scared of me and, like, what I was into and gave me a second glance. Was any of that a thing for you, Felicity? The kind of like the kind of associations of darkness with metal, was any of that a factor in, like, in the way that it's like, your parents might not like it, or people around the neighborhood might be like, oh my gosh, there goes a scary metalhead.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're asking me that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, not to get all deep on you guys, but
No, go for it.
I for sure it was. Yeah, I mean, like high school wasn't really like the greatest days for me. I had some health issues, food allergies. I was suffering a little bit, like physically, like learning about my body, and I don't know. I wasn't that confident sometimes during that time, and I guess you could say I was battling with some demons that I was having. So metal definitely felt like an escape and almost like this community of energy that I felt safe in. I mean, also like psychedelic rock too felt like that for me. But when metal kind of came into my life, it was definitely more, it made sense, and it really kind of soothed those demons, helped me understand like my emotions, what I was kind of going through at that time. So.
Definitely. What about you, Stephen? When did you first start getting into metal and heavy music?
Probably in middle school.
Yep.
When I was in middle school was the big heyday of like new metal.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it was, you'd see Korn videos on MTV, and it was not out of the ordinary, So you just follow that yellow brick road, follow that path of heavy music, and end up, in the place where we've gone, and that's post metal and kind of sludgy, hardcore based bands like Nails, Harm's Way, Neuroses, and we've kind of it started out, back then music was tangible. It was like you go to Best Buy and buy CDs,
Right.
and you go buy the new Slipknot record. Whereas now you have all these different ways to discover music and discover different bands. It just progressed with technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was also a thing, I feel like, even, for us at middle school age and for everybody, when you're into heavy music, there's that one-upping of like, you want to be the first person to turn your friends on to those different bands. So when you buy the first Slipknot record, or if you were to buy, one of the early Korn records, if you were the first person to find that in your social group, it's like you have this precious gem of information that it's like, hey, you guys need to hear this. And
bragging rights for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I was the one that discovered that band.
Yeah. Right. And it's something to where now you feel like you're not the only one listening to those things either. And so it's kind of, you get to share it with other people and help build that community. And I think especially now, it's still kind of like that even as adults in a sense, because I'll still send bands like that to my friends. Like the first time I've heard, bands that you mentioned, or, the first time that, one of the people in my group of friends heard of Dillinger, and it's like, hey, you got to check this band out, and then sent it to me and blew my mind. Like, I'd never heard anything like that before, you know, and it's still kind of like that. I feel like people are really keeping that community alive by just sharing and being involved with it.
And to that
Yeah.
end, there's still bands that I'm picking up on, new metal bands that I'm not telling you about. So
Oh,
that I have
okay.
that shit like the ace up my sleeve. Facts.
Yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
digress.
I should say though that, you know, as a drummer, even though I loved metal, I was somewhat intimidated, and I didn't really try to start playing metal until I'd say like college, kind of college around that age.
Yeah.
You know, and I got my first double bass pedals. And actually, speaking of Dillinger, Billy, their past drummer, Billy Reimer, we grew up together on Long Island, and he's a close friend of mine, and
Oh,
he
cool.
helped me learn double bass. So that was a big advantage I had. And so when I moved to LA, I really started honing in on those skills, and I joined a doom sludge metal band, and from there, like, that's kind of how it really started, how I sort of integrated my way like into the metal scene as a drummer. You know, just because it is an intimidating genre sometimes to start playing, like even double bass. I mean, I used to think it looked so difficult, you know, but meanwhile, you know, I'm like watching Bleed by Meshuggah, you know, like thinking like, you know, oh, I could never do that. But you know, once I just started practicing and realizing like, okay, this is basically muscle memory. I mean, I just have to be repetitive and persistent with it. And yeah, I just like really tried to build my chops up. But
Yeah.
Especially because all of Felicity's favorite bands are like super technical, progressive bands that
All about the timing.
involve so much skill and talent.
yeah, I mean, like prog metal, I love it. You know, it's just to me that I really appreciate like the craftsmanship like that those musicians have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you have a connection to it, when you have a friend that's really talented, whether it's
When you have a friend.
yeah, when you have a friend like that that's also a really talented musician, it kind of gives you a little bit more of an insight into like, hey, I can do this. It makes this intimidating thing like trying to learn double bass chops or trying to get really clean fills or even just get your speed up as a musician, because I've dealt with that as a bass player, you know, trying to learn some really fast, like crazy metal riffs. And when someone can show you that when you're first getting into that, I feel like it just, you know, kind of makes this daunting task seem a little bit less intimidating.
Yeah. I mean, I think also a thing for me was because, you know, I picked percussion as my instrument in 4th grade, and I fell in love with it, like, as a child. I had so much energy, and it just really fit, you know, it just fit my lifestyle. My parents were awesome. They bought me a drum set when I got into 6th grade, and I had private lessons every week. And my background was rudimental, you know, and reading music and doing snare drum solos, and I was kind of a band nerd, you know, and I just loved playing music. But then in high school, I got more into, I guess, like jamming, and I stopped being as meticulous and practicing my rudiments every day, and I got more into just like playing music with guitarists and bassists and having people over the house to jam, you know. But I kind of lost that sort of militant, like, okay, I gotta practice 30 minutes a day, like, and I wish I had kind of kept up with that, because if I had all throughout high school, I probably would be on like another level than I am now. But and then I got in college, I went for nutrition, and I sort of was like going into a different direction. And as much as I loved music, I kind of placed it on the back burner for a few years, because I would still play like when I could, but it was more, I'm like, well, you know, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make a living from this. I love it. It's a passion, but
Right.
I have to also have my other sources of income and my backup plans. And so I sort of lost a bit of my chops, I'd say, like in early college. And then I transferred schools, went to back to Long Island for a bit, and I joined a band. We were like a progressive rock funk band, and started playing a lot more. And then when I moved to LA at like 21, 22, I just started playing every day again because I had the time and the flexibility to do it. But as much as I loved music, like I always made sure I had my other bases covered because it's unfortunate, but like, it's hard to make a good living like solely from music unless, you really have a good thing going. And for me, it was just, I didn't want to see myself as being this struggling artist and, strapped for cash and having to worry. Like I wanted to be able to do what I love and play music as a passion. And if, hey, like maybe one day I can make something from this, great. But I've always been realistic about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's I think it's good to have your bases covered like that, but it's also, I don't know if you feel this way, but it kind of informs your different skill sets. So if you're really talented, because you also DJ as well as being a drummer and, musician in a band, I feel like all of your skill sets are going to feed into each other and you like kind of play off your different life experiences with what you're involved in. So it's, you have a different set of skills and chops that you wouldn't be able to have if you were just a drummer and you just focused on that every single day. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if I tie in like the other part of my career, like in my early 20s, I was doing a lot of modeling and whatnot when I was in my like 19, 20, 21. And then I got into kind of more like nude stuff. And then I got offered to do adult work and it kind of like fell into that direction. And that was really not the path I was expecting to take, like, or thinking I was going to go down that path, but it just happened. And, I had all these opportunities to make money at a young age and move to Los Angeles and start a life. So I looked at it as like, okay, I mean, I already kind of started this, so I might as well take advantage of it. I mean, I'm an artist. I got to look at this as like another outlet. Even though there was a lot of like contradictions, I felt like I didn't always agree with everything that I was kind of doing, but it was such a lucrative thing where I had so much flexibility and time. And so, I was able to make a good living and support myself, yet also have the time to play drums and go jam and not have a 9-to-5 job. So it just worked during that time. But I had the end goal that like, okay, this is strictly a means to an end. Like I'm doing this because I can, but I know what I really want to be doing. And that's to be working in music and to be working in nutrition and health and wellness. And so once I kind of turned 25, 26, I started to really kind of transition out of that world. Because, I didn't want to rely on that anymore. And it's dangerous to like rely on something solely for an income when like, okay, I'm only getting older and, I want to make sure like I really am pursuing what I really want to do. So by the time I'm in my 30s, like I'm set, Right. So it's been a weird transition like throughout my 20s and now I'm 28. So I figure like by the time I am 30, I'll be where I want to be, but it's been weird. It's been a weird road. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because I feel like to an extent we all kind of go through the same things as creative people because we're the same age and I've been feeling that, about just doing, my career path on if I'm going to be committed to doing this of playing in a band, working on the tech side of things, just writing because I have a column that I write every week. It's like if I'm going to be a creative person for a living, you kind of have to commit to it and you have to really put your all into it because you're kind of only getting older. So there's this weird, kind of pressure you feel, I think. And there's these weird moments that it's like, as you're exiting your 20s into your 30s, it's like, oh man, it's like, I better. It's very true. I got to get all my ducks lined up in a row because this is kind of an unsure life, and it's. And it's later than you think, for sure. Yeah. And that's something I wanted to ask you about as well with, transitioning sort of out of the adult, entertainment industry and into the music business. Can I interject real quick? Oh, absolutely. My co-host. I want your honest take on this, Felicity. It's like, this is a euphemism. Is this something that you prefer to use, adult industry?
You know what I mean? It's kind of like the euphemistic term, I feel like. What's your take on that? Do you prefer saying that, or do you feel like there's a deflection to that versus porn? Do you think they're the same in terms of like speaking about it?
I mean, I think I like to use adult industry because it's more broad, because, you know, a lot of people don't do film that's on the internet. Some people just work in a strip club, or some, you know, some people work as a dominatrix and like they're never on camera. You know what I mean? Some people just webcam. So like there's different, I guess, areas within the industry that do make kind of significant differences. And, you know, for me, it's like, okay, if once I decided to do film that would be public, like on the internet, that's kind of, you know, a very big decision to make, because once it's out there, it's out there, and like you kind of are in it, you know. So that's why, you know, I've this past year especially, I've made a lot of videos kind of talking about my experiences in it, and to kind of think twice a little bit about really going down that road, because some people don't really realize the impact that it could have long term. And I'm not saying like it's, if someone wants to do it, by all means, like do it if that's your calling, you know. I mean, I'm not saying don't do it, but I don't think a lot of times people realize like the consequences it kind of has down the road. And for me, I mean, it's made things more challenging at points, for sure. Like it's created a bit of a stigma that I have to kind of work against sometimes, and people view me sometimes in a way before they actually know me, because they know that I've worked in that industry.
Close-minded people view you in that way. Close-minded people shut you off like that.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, it's just
much like how you make those videos where you're speaking about what it was like to actually experience that, and then have to internalize all of those, both the positive and the negative, because you spoke to both in some of those videos that I checked out. So it's... Sorry.
No, it's a great point. It's you have a pretty honest take about everything, and you're an open book about it. And I think that's really the only way to overcome closed-minded people, is just to keep doing what you do, and, you know, put, you know, hey, this is what happened. I'm not hiding from it. You know, not my proudest moments necessarily, but this is what happened. And I do so many other things besides that. It's like, hey, I can play drums.
Yeah.
I have a cool band, you know, and I work in the nutrition industry. You are a talented person, and it's like, there's so many people that do other things that are stigmatized that don't get carried with them all through life when they move on from that. And there's this weird thing of like, and I'm glad you brought this up because I wanted to talk about this too. As a society, we're so obsessed with like sex and all these other things, or
exactly.
as Frank Zappa calls it, titillation. It's not even like really sex. It's all this weird sort of like used in advertising, or just like so many different things that like this is the root of it, of our obsession. But then when somebody decides that, you know, I want to get paid for this work when they're young, and, you know, even if they regret it later on or not, whatever that particular person's circumstances, if they want to go, hey, you know, I'm not in my 20s anymore, I want to do something else for a living, I'm moving on, there is a weird stigma that you can't move on from that. We've had people on this podcast that have been to jail that are, you know, ex-convicts. We've had people, you know, all sorts of different backgrounds of things, that it's like, you can accept those people because they moved on and they've made better life choices. But for some reason, if you work in the adult industry, you're stuck with that forever. And I don't know, why do you think that is? You know, obviously we could just say it's closed-minded people, but do you think there's a specific reason for this?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I guess because the way I've looked at it and thought about it, I mean, because I've thought about it in so many different angles, but sex, in a way, like, it can be, at least, you know, nudity, like, engaging in that act can be very vulnerable for people, right? Like, it's not something that a lot of people are, oh yeah, film me, like, you know, take pictures of me naked. Like, a lot of people wouldn't be comfortable with that.
Right.
To them, it's almost like, oh, well, this is more of a private thing, like intimacy, you know? And so when you're working in that industry, in a way, like, you're kind of exposing that part of yourself. And a lot of people don't have the confidence or self-esteem to do it. So instead of, you know, seeing someone doing that and being like, oh, good for them. A lot of people want to bring you down because they know that, oh, well, I could never do that, or I would never do that. So they'll look at it in a negative way. I mean, the same thing, it's like, anytime someone starts to become successful, they get haters, right? Because they're doing things that other people can't do, or like they don't want to do, they're afraid to do it because they don't want to be judged. And, when I had first started, I got really bad harassment, like bullied. I had a really terrible experience going into the industry.
Right.
Just bullied by people from my hometown and on the internet. And it was a mess. Like, it wasn't positive at all in the beginning. And I went through some really dark phases, like questioning, oh man, like I really fucked up. I made I wish I didn't do this, but I didn't want to live in regret. And I got to this point, it was like a fork in the road before I moved to LA, where I had to kind of tell myself, okay, if I continue to try to hide this and make it seem like, oh, I made a mistake, I'm moving on, people will continue to harass me with it. But once I just owned it and I embraced it and I said, look, yeah, I did this and I'm doing this. So think what you want. I'm doing whatever I want to do. As soon as I did that and I just let go, the bullying stopped. I mean, for the most part, you still get like trolls on the internet, but
those lovely trolls.
yeah, I mean, I think it's just like, and a lot of people maybe look at people that do adult work as it's like a lower class of work. Like, oh, well, you're just sucking dick for money or something like that. Like,
Right.
They don't, they look at it in a crude way. And like, I understand that, I guess, because it's not like it takes a level, you don't need a college degree to go shoot porn or something, like anyone could technically do it. So
It
I
requires
think
some skill.
What if you
well,
did
yeah,
though?
but I'm just saying,
What
like
if
some
you
people,
did,
I
though?
think, look down on it, which I get, but it's inaccurate, because I mean, it requires a level of confidence and thick skin that a lot of people can't do. So, yeah, it's just something that people should be open-minded about for sure. It could
Yeah,
be
they
like
should.
any other industry.
And those videos, when you post them, I think my point was just that there's a social benefit because everybody out there is like, all the judgment is coming from the same people who are consuming the product. So I look at it as like, it's fair play that you should also have to see what somebody is experiencing, all of the negativity that you did have to go through on the other end of that.
Yeah.
Like, because all of the stigma is all around the same sort of people who are on the side looking at porn on their phone all day anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, America, I'm talking to you. Love you, America.
Yeah, I mean, I just at this point, I don't respond to trolls. I don't respond to any negativity. Like if someone wants to write some shitty comment on my social media or anything, I just ignore it. I block them. I don't engage because it's just I am not allowing someone's negativity to take me off my path of life. Like, no one is going to take away my positivity because I know who I am. I know what my path is. Someone has a viewpoint, I just don't care anymore. Like there's no point for me to get caught up in that bullshit.
Yeah.
It's just like I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna live my life, and
Yeah.
people don't like it. That's fine. It's just like you don't have to say anything about it.
Yeah. You don't have to keep up with
Let
your
me live.
Yeah, people don't have to keep up with your endeavors just to leave a shitty comment on, YouTube or Instagram or things like that.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, I get it every day. Like as though I have to say I get more positivity than negativity, but I still get terrible comments like almost every day that I
Yeah.
have to delete, and that's gonna happen forever. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, in order to work in an industry where you're really putting yourself out there, you have to be thick-skinned. Like, you have to be prepared for criticism and for people to knock you down. And that's like in any entertainment industry.
Yep.
Music's the same way. Like you're creating something. And I mean, that's why, I think that as a musician and an artist already, I already know what it's like to deal with criticism and people judging you for your work. So I just look at it myself, like I work in various mediums of creating, and that's just one of them right now. Eventually it's not really going to be a part of my life anymore, but I'm making the most of it,
Right. Well, and Stephen, is that something being a bandmate with Felicity? Have you experienced a lot of that with people, being negative towards you, or like, being weird with you because of, that band situation,
Or all
or
your time in porn?
No, I mean, Felicity's showed me some messages that she's been sent, but nothing. I haven't received any criticisms along those lines.
okay.
I've received more because I have some very strong political views. So I have received some criticisms on those political views
Let's unpack
on
all
the
of
internet, but nothing about anything that she had been doing.
Yeah.
That's cool. You guys both bring some sauce to the table. That's what's up.
Yes.
You guys are both controversial in your own respective ways. Like any good rap duo,
Yep. There you go.
which is not what you guys are. Sorry.
Same spirit.
Yeah. I mean, the progress in music as far as I'll kind of just jump into this.
Yeah.
Please.
Please.
Because when I first moved to LA, I was telling you, I kind of just I ended up I lived in this house where the landlord, it was a really awesome house in Woodland Hills, and he had all this music equipment. He had a drum set there, and I was living there, actually in an attic. He let me live there rent free if but living in the attic, and I cleaned the house, did all that. I made hash for this landlord.
Nice.
So it was like a work trade thing, but
Right.
I practiced every day. Like I practiced every day in that house. And then once I was like confident enough, I started going on Craigslist and meeting up with people at AMP in North Hollywood. I would walk to the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, jump on the orange bus, go to North Hollywood, or I would go to the Guitar Center, hourly rehearsal centers. Like I just was nonstop. I just wanted to become a better drummer again. And
Yeah.
it felt so good, like watching myself progress and get better and evolve. And anyway, so then I just started playing with bands, and I ended up moving. I was like living in Sherman Oaks, sharing a house with someone, and at that point, I had bought a new DW kit and I had a bunch of new gear, and I auditioned for this band. They were like a doom sludge metal band, and it was a little bit like slower and heavier than like what I really wanted to play, but I figured, you know what, these guys are cool, we're getting along, they're accepting me, they're taking me seriously as a musician, so I'm just gonna keep playing with them. And eventually, like, we ended up doing a lot of stuff together. I was with them for like 2 years, actually, and we were Gar Beast, and then we became Ancient Fears. Mm-hmm. And, we played at a lot of cool venues, like Whiskey A Go-Go, Viper Room, all that whole scene. But it was cool. It was like a good way for me to kind of start to showcase my skills and get out there. But then that kind of was fizzling out. We just weren't getting as much stuff done. We got a new singer, and like it was just this. We were kind of going in different directions a little bit. So I quit, and right after I quit, this member from Distorted Pony, they were like an old psych rock band. Mm-hmm. They asked me to do this mini tour with them, and I learned 10 of their songs in a month. It was kind of ridiculous, but I did that with them. Yeah, so it was just, like having played in that band and like really trying to get content, get myself out there, that helped me a lot. And then during that time, I was still with Ancient Fears. Stephen and I met, and we jammed at Sound Studios in Van Nuys, and we just kind of instantly connected. We were like friends, and we could talk, and we talked like just as much as we played. And musically, it just felt right, and Stephen really wanted to be a two-piece, which I thought was very different, which I had never done before, but I was into it. And so we just kept writing music. Like that was one thing about us that I thought was great. Like we had no problem writing music. We just started writing like so much original content, and it was awesome. So we just kind of were rolling with it. And then eventually we're like, we should get a lockout together, because I was then moving. I was then living in Arcadia with my ex-boyfriend. He was a drummer too, and so we had a jam room in the house, and so I was able to play music anytime I wanted in my old house, which was awesome. But it was a little far for him to drive there. So we got a lockout in North Hollywood, so halfway, you know.
Yeah, I live in Encino.
Yeah, because he's in the valley. So when COVID happened, we took advantage of the time. You know, I mean, I feel bad it's affected a lot of people in negative ways, but I've just looked at it as an opportunity to get a lot of stuff done. And with us musically, like we just jammed and wrote music, and we really solidified like 3 of our songs, and we were ready to record. And we did that this summer. And so now, you know, we finally finished our new EP. It was great. It was a good experience. So that's kind of like how we kind of evolved to where we're at.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sweet.
That's awesome. And I think that's the only productive and healthy way that you can really look at this time, especially as a band. You know, you're kind of really relying on each other. I think bands in general these days are relying on each other more for emotional support, and, you know, like just,
Is that a thing?
I don't know. At least me and my band
Could
do
be a
that.
thing.
And it's also like, hey, if we can't go out and play, which is the one thing we want to do, let's get back in the practice space and write some new music, so we'll be ready to go when, you know, we can play for people and they can hear the new songs, and, you know, just trying to have a positive outlook on the whole thing.
Yeah. Exactly. It's more time to rehearse, more time to create.
Yeah.
Polish it up. Polish
Yeah.
it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, it's just one of those things, like, we're going to look back during this time, like, in history, and look at it and be like, holy shit, remember when we went through that, you know? And it's just, we might as well try to be as positive as we can. I mean, because the point, you know, getting frustrated, complaining about it, it's not going to help anything. And, you know, I've just been really trying to stay busy, and it's
Yeah.
I've been happy in a way, like getting all this stuff done. I mean, I'm excited for things to kind of get back to normal, but, you know, musically, it's like, okay, this is a period of time where we should be a little more introverted and creative and internally, and write music and prepare, you know, just prepare for the future. And just take advantage of this time that we have.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah, that's awesome. And since we're actually talking about the EP, I wanted to ask, what was the name of the EP? It was, oh man.
Damage reduction.
Damage Reduction, that's right.
Damage reduction.
I wanted to talk about, with writing that, since you guys are a 2-piece, like, what's the process of how you craft the songs in the practice space, and kind of how it ended up becoming the finished product that it is? Because, you know, normally when you have like singer, guitarist, or 2 guitarists, bass player, drummer, there's a lot of different opinions that could be at play as far as the direction you want to go.
All the fucking opinions, right?
Yeah, but with just you guys, I feel like that would be easier to get songs cranked out and just kind of, you know,
Right?
be moving in one direction.
Yeah. Most of the time when we write, we'll basically just jam. We like when we have a band rehearsal, we'll jam usually every time for 30 or 45 minutes. Just improvising, you know, trying to create new things. Sometimes I might bring a riff in and maybe just one riff to jam on, and then we just see where that riff takes us. And we do like to record a lot of our jams and rehearsals, so that way we can always go back and say, oh, you know, I really like what we were doing there, but I don't exactly remember how it went.
Yeah.
So we can go back and listen to what we were doing, and then kind of craft that into songs.
Yeah. I mean, like it like he said, it starts with sometimes, like, it's kind of nice when he brings in a riff, because then I'm like, oh, I like this, you know, and then I kind of just find something, you know, and we know each other so well, like musically. I mean, as people too, but so musically, like, we just can read off of each other really easily. So when he brings in something, I just kind of naturally find and figure out a beat, you know, like I usually don't have a problem like starting something, and then we'll kind of just like look at each other and be like, wow, yeah, this is cool, you know, let's record this. And then from there we try to structure it into a song and think like, okay, maybe this could be the intro or the bridge, or and yeah, so like that's how it usually starts. I mean, I think when we first started playing together, he had some material that he showed me that he was interested in kind of like doing, and then I wrote all my drum parts for it. And
Right.
yeah, I mean, and that's what happened with Ancient Fears too, like the other band, same thing. Like they had some stuff and showed me, and so I just kind of wrote all my drum parts, and then it just, slowly created. Like I love making original content. It's an awesome feeling. Like when I was playing with Distorted Pony, like learning all their songs, it was a challenge, and I was happy to do it. It was a great experience, but there's so much more pleasure, I feel like, as a musician to write original content. And it's like it's like our baby,
Yeah.
like literally like just creating something and then watching it grow and evolve, and
Yep.
now it's like a finished product. I mean, it's an awesome feeling. So
Yeah.
And being a two-piece, it gives us a lot of freedoms. When we are jamming or improvising, if we both change at the same time, we don't have to worry about anybody else doing anything different. It does. I guess the only downside would be that maybe we don't have as much creative input from other band members. But on the other side, though, it's easier for us to schedule band rehearsals. It's easier for us to agree on what structures of a song or the cover of the EP or anything like this, rather than having like 3 or 4 different voices in your ear.
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
totally. Like, okay, yeah, there's less people to put creative input in, but at the same time, I feel like if you're really locked in with someone musically, then you just feed off each other. And like that's how it is with him and I. Like we just kind of, we show up, and if like, one of us is tired, and we'll just be like, hey, I'm not feeling so creative today. Let's just like run through the set, and work on the new song rather than try to create something new. But yeah, so that's been a really cool thing, and not having to worry about communicating with 3 other people, it definitely makes things easier. But and then like the whole process of, because Steven does guitar, bass, and vocals, and I just do drums, so
Yeah.
it's pretty cool that like he's kind of in control of all those aspects. So yeah, you should tell them like kind of how you do that.
Okay.
With the
please.
it's a pretty cool.
Break it down.
So whenever we play live, just whenever we're playing our rehearsal space now because we can't play out, I do run like 3 different amps. I split the guitar. I split at the very front of my signal chain. I split the guitar, and I send another guitar signal out to a bass amp.
Nice.
And use a bass. Electro Harmonics has a bass synth that
Yep.
it mimics the I think it's like the bass 9, and it pretty well mimics the bass sound. It gives you those very low frequencies.
Yep.
And then I run stereo guitar to 2 different amps, and use them at the very end of that chain. Like there's a lot of distortion and a lot of things going on, a lot of noise gates, suppressors. But at the end of the stereo guitar chain, I use the Mimic pedal by TC Electronics, and that will slightly alter your stereo chain. You have a mono signal that goes out and it sounds exactly how your guitar amp sounds, but then the stereo slightly modifies it, like maybe it gives it a little bit of a delay and a little bit of modulation, so you can hard pan those guitars. So when I hit a chord and I'm running all 3 amps, it sounds like a full band. That's for sure. There's no compensating there.
Yeah. And that's there's been with not exactly the same as far as style wise, but with Royal Blood and Death from Above 1979, they kind of have a similar setup. Or I think they're running actual basses into bass and guitar amps, but you're kind of doing the opposite there. And that's the great part about all that gear. You can just, double track pedals, octave pedals, guitar and bass, splitting your rig. And it's like, you can have a full sound. Like you said, you hit a chord and you're like looking around for, the other 2 or 3 people that's creating all that thickness. But nope, it's just you guys.
Oh yeah, and even with like a chugging metal riff,
Yeah.
that modulation, it really does make it sound like you have two guitars playing that rhythm riff.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, hopefully when all this, craziness dies down, I can experience that heaviness with Davey in person one of these days.
Yeah. Now, when we recorded, though, I just full on recorded
Track by
multiple
track.
guitar tracks.
Yeah.
I recorded the bass track. That wasn't an issue because you have the time to do it.
Yeah. That's cool. I mean, that's in a way, like, I don't know, you kind of have more control over the sound too when you record, because you're kind of responsible for filling out all of that sort of string section of the frequency spectrum. So it's like you can decide if you wanted somebody to come in and play like bass on some songs, or if you wanted to add something, you could have somebody do it. You could do it yourself. You could do it all with, multi-track guitars and different pedals. Like, in a way, you're kind of more free with less people, where it seems like you might be more limited on paper, I guess, or the sound.
Well, yeah, it's like the more input can come from just the two people who are involved at that point, which is fun. I do like that arrangement. It's like I have someone I write songs with now. We're not going to name who they are. They're in the room off camera.
They are. They may or may not be at the hands of all the engineering gear over there.
It really is nice, especially when it's like, you could say, what about this instrument? Oh, we both play that. You try that. Okay. So it's fun to just kind of be able to do that with just two like-minded individuals like you guys clearly are,
Yep.
Yeah.
So I feel that
Totally.
experience.
I know we like once in a while jam with other people, you know what I mean? And we've like talked about what about, maybe we add a third person, but then we kind of come to the conclusion we're just like, nah, because we have a good thing, and it's just even musically, like when we first started playing together, it was more, I would say, sludgy doom, and then over time, we were just talking about this the other day. Like we've like challenged each other a lot musically, as far as like we've helped each other grow a lot as musicians, and we're kind of like always bringing ideas to each other. Like why don't we try this? Why don't we try this? And we kind of have gone into more of a, I want to say like more just power metal. I don't know. I mean,
that's a fine
kind
genre.
of like right. We kind of like more in that direction.
It's definitely a more progressive sounding.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Cool.
Faster.
I wouldn't say like Dragon Force so much, but it's definitely like a little bit more progressive and technical than when we started.
Yeah.
Nice, guys.
Well, and listening to the EP, I don't know, I can hear a bunch of different influences and styles in there too, I think. The first track is Two Americas or Two Americans. I think that's...
Yeah, Two Americans.
Yeah. That, like, I'm hearing kind of ambient, a little bit of like that stoner psychedelic rock a little bit, when like kind of guitar tone and the intro. But then like when you guys kick into the song, it's kind of, I don't know, like kind of thrashy, kind of hardcore, and it's a little bit of a blend of like a bunch of different styles in metal and heavy music. I feel like kind of a
Yes, we both listen to a variety of music, a variety of metal, a variety of rock. I think we both at some point we're both very heavy into the stoner rock scene.
Yeah.
But even I think Felicity's favorite artist right now is probably either Meg Thee Stallion or Cardi B.
Megan Thee Stallion.
We laugh because sometimes too, like we'll listen to rap or something, and just I don't know. It's great when you connect with someone musically and on other levels as well, that like you can just always communicate and throw like music to each other and be like, oh, what do you think of this? And it's just open, like it's open feedback, and it's really cool, and the stuff that we recorded for the EP, that was our older content. Like that was the older stuff that we wrote, that we've, finally. So the stuff we're writing now is definitely like more, I'd say, like prog, like more prog metal and faster, and so it's kind of cool to see musically like how we've been evolving over the period of time. And so it doesn't really feel like a burden to play, and that's another great thing, like being in a two-piece band. you don't have like 100 personalities to deal with. Like, it's just like, okay, yeah, let's show up, let's do this tonight. It's just,
You want to go lock out tonight? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm there.
yeah, like
I'll be there in an hour.
it's like a release, it's great. It's cool. I was a little like apprehensive at first, like just being in a 2-piece band, because I wasn't used to that. But since we've been in one for it's been like a year and a half. Yeah, it's great. I'm very happy with it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Jinx.
And also too, when you guys tour, you won't have to deal with 5 or 6 sweaty, smelly people
It's going to
sharing
be such a
one
nice smelling
hotel
van,
room.
such a clean van, just 2 humans.
Well, you might not even need a van. If you got a drum kit and with all the gear and the amps and everything, you may. But
Oh no, yeah.
Yeah.
I have we have all the gear of a 4-piece band. Just there's
that's
only 2 of
right?
us.
That's what I was-
but it's it's less people and logistics and mouths to feed and
Drama to occur.
Yeah, personalities to butt heads.
Personalities clash, all
Yeah,
that shit.
I think it's cool, and I think it gives you guys a unique lane to explore sonically too. But switching gears a little bit.
But yeah, on that last one note, like I'm trying to rack my brain. Is there any like metal duo besides like I can think of like Nile maybe, right? But do they count, or Sun? You guys know what I'm talking about? Like the super
Yeah.
sludgy 2-piece. Yeah, like
Yep.
yeah. Do you guys
Jucifer.
listen to that? That's, according to what you guys said, it sounds like a band you might like.
Yeah.
Which band?
Nile
Sun-
and Sun.
Yeah, like Sun specifically, because I was like, I heard them and I was like, oh, this is super fun, because it's just really like down tuned and just super. It's like, it's very minimalist. in a way.
Loud as fuck.
Well, yeah, it's really loud. But anyway, what were you saying before I rudely interrupted?
Oh, well, I was just going to talk a little bit about being in the local scene and stuff like that.
Boring, keep going.
Yeah.
Bring me something else.
Well, I was going to just ask this, though, because, and I don't know how it is necessarily, being and living in LA all the time, because we're up in the high desert and, we'll play LA sometimes and, we'll work down there sometimes, but it's pretty much just, we're up here in the desert. Like,
I use LA. That's how I look at it.
yeah, I kind of feel the same way to a certain extent. And given, that you guys are involved with, trying to book gigs and, working in the music business, you had mentioned, Felicity, that you feel like that there's been a stigma, because of certain music companies or different things like that, that they might not want to be associated with you because of your past work in the adult industry. Like, I think that's a little bit odd just in hearing that, because I'm used to, like, when I show up even to like stagehand gigs, there's dudes covered in tattoos, dreads, coming from all walks of life, just not necessarily looking for the corporate 9-to-5 sort of lifestyle. And really, like, pretty much anybody with, an interesting past, is accepted into that line of work and can do it and can excel at it and become a success in it. So I wanted to hear more about your experiences. Where has that affected you trying to book gigs, or, where has that affected you in the music industry?
Yeah, I would say not more so in, working in nutrition. Like,
Okay.
I've lost a couple of jobs because they did like a background search and
Aw.
saw my trademark on Felicity Feline, and
That sucks.
corporate contacted me and just would say, hey, like, we're not comfortable with this. And I was okay about it. Like, because I realized, okay, like, I understand. Like, I didn't even kind of fight about it. It is what it is, I know that there's a lot of companies, especially in that industry, like the health world, that they're more conservative. So I could understand that. Musically, I would say that, I've talked to a lot of managers, like agents, like advice, about, because some people have told me, no, like, you should keep it separate. Like, you keep your stage name and your, drumming a separate thing. And I just said, no. Like, it's dumb to do that, because no matter what, people are going to connect it. Like, and then I'm just going to look
Eventually.
like I'm just going to look like a fool, trying to be like, oh, well, I used to do that and I went by this. It's like, nah, like, fuck it. I'd rather just kind of embrace it all and be like, this is my weird life and it is what it is,
Yeah.
it's just, and I have nothing to hide. Like,
No.
I hate feeling like, oh, I have to keep this tucked away in the closet. You know, it's like, who the fuck cares? But you know, that being said, sometimes it does. I feel like sometimes people don't take me as seriously initially. Initially, you know, first off, because all right, I'm already a female drummer, which, you know, isn't the most common thing. Like, whatever, but who gives a crap about gender, right? Like, it's like, if you can play, you can play. That's the only thing that matters, you know. But given like my physical appearance, sometimes, like, you know, because most of the people I play with are men, they sometimes, I feel like, don't take me seriously right away. And then if they find out too, you know, working in the adult industry, they're like, oh, you know, oh, is this like a gimmick, you know, or like they'll kind of like jump to a conclusion like that. And sometimes in the past, not so much anymore, like I felt like I was a bit of the underdog and I had to kind of prove myself, like, musically. And then once they realize, like, okay, yeah, she can play, like, she's a legit musician, then they kind of back off and it's not an issue anymore. But yeah, I do face that sometimes. But I wouldn't say it's like as much of a problem in music as it has been in mainstream areas. I mean, like, acting too. I really enjoy acting, but sometimes certain companies or shows or networks, they don't want to work with adult performers. And like I said, I get it. I don't really get upset about it. You know, I'm also covered in tattoos, so that's another reason why sometimes I get limited with opportunities like that. But yeah, I would say, like, musically, the biggest challenge is sometimes like gutting over that initial hump. Like, I have to prove to myself, I mean, I have to prove to these people that I can play, even though it's like, you can look on the internet, there's plenty of videos and recordings of me playing, but still, you know, people just want, they don't want to assume that you are what you are, you know. So I would say, I guess that's the best way I could kind of explain that.
Right. It's and I'm glad that you did explain it, because there already is, unfortunately, stereotypes against female musicians and drummers. You know, specifically, I've heard ones about
spoke
that.
on this.
Yeah, and we've had other, you know, female musicians and songwriters on in past episodes, and they've talked about their own stigmas they have to deal with because of that. But then where you're coming from, there is that extra layer of like, oh yeah, is this a gimmick? Like, how did she get this gig? You know, like that whole sort of insinuation. And it's like, that's so, it's unnecessary bullshit that you shouldn't have to deal with, but unfortunately is out there. And yeah, once you play a show or you can send somebody your music and they go, oh, like, yeah, you can actually shred, you could actually play. It just eliminates those barriers, you know, and kind of weeds out people that you may or may not want to necessarily work with if they have that mindset going into it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I feel a lot less of that now because I'm much more confident as a musician now than I was 4 years ago. So, you know, I don't really like feel like I have a chip on my shoulder so much anymore. But there has been periods of time where I have, and yeah, I mean, I think also, you know, I've talked about this to other female musicians, but I think also there's this thing where, you know, playing drums especially, it is a bit of a masculine thing. Like, I don't mean that in a way to make it seem like women can't do it, but it's a very physical instrument and it requires, you know, stamina, right? Exactly. And especially like metal, and it's aggressive, and you have to be present and strong and not be afraid to really let go, you know, if you want to like get to that level where you're being able to do fast beats and double bass and all that. So a lot of it, you know, I have to really like let go mentally and not like think like, oh, do I look sexy doing this? It's like, no, that I don't think, you don't think like that. You know, you think like, okay, I'm
That's all I think.
this is my instrument and I'm going to use my body as a way to do everything I can, you know? So sometimes I think it's hard for people to disassociate, like in a way, like an attractive female, like, and playing an instrument like that and playing like that type of music, you know? So sometimes that I think there's like a level of shock value that kind of exists. But then it breaks, I think, like once I'm doing what I'm doing and people see like, oh yeah, she's a passionate musician. Like, so everything else, like who cares about, you know? So.
Right.
And it's not the only dimension to the story. I was watching a video clip of you playing with Ancient Fears at one of the gigs, and I was watching you like bang on the ride cymbal, bang, bang, and I was like, homie's got guns. That's like the one thing I noticed. I was like, you're ripping on the ride cymbal. I was like, that's muscle right there. I was like, I'm gonna go do a couple of dumbbell curls real quick.
Yeah,
I was like, that was inspirational, bro.
Yeah, I mean, it helps too. Like, I was an athlete growing up, so I've always utilized my body as it's you know, it has purpose. Like I played soccer and did gymnastics and volleyball and
Cool.
grew up dirt biking and riding motorcycles. So it's like I always was doing things that were aggressive and masculine, I guess you could say. So yeah, so drumming to me is just another form. It's another outlet that I utilize my body and my brain, but it's also kind of nice to balance it out and like utilize my feminine energy too, you know? So I've really learned to like balance it out. Because for me, like when I'm drumming, I'm definitely bringing out like my more masculine energy, if that makes sense. Like the more like
she plays heavy as hell.
like I can't be afraid to be aggressive, you know? Because I honestly like when I'm playing my best, it's when I'm aggressive and I have a lot of force and power, you know, and I have to like tap into that more primal side, which a lot of females I feel like sometimes are hesitant to do so because they don't want to look like, oh, you know, I don't want to look manly or something, you know, but so yeah, I think like that stigma too exists. Like when someone really like was playing hardcore and it's letting go, they don't necessarily like look at it in a feminine way. That's more of like a masculine thing. So that's been like an interesting journey, kind of breaking that barrier in my mind, you know?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. By nature.
I know I've shown our EP to a few of my friends, and I've had some surprised comments like, "Oh wow, like that's a chick drummer playing on that," you know, like, "Wow, that's a woman on there," and I'm like, "Yeah, dude, so what? Like, what of it? Like, yeah, she's very attractive too. Like, so that means she's got that going too."
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a feline.
Yeah. There's a Lemmy quote from Motorhead where he was talking about taking out the old school band Girl School on tour, and then he would get comments about them like, oh wow, they're pretty good for girls, and then he'd be like, they're better than you, man, you know, like they can play, you know, guitar and bass, drums like better than you can, so like why are you saying, oh, they're pretty good for girls? And that always stuck with me, like, yeah, oh yeah, it's a good female drummer. It's like, no, it's a good fucking drummer, period.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think Lemmy said that they outdrank him too on that tour.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just, I think that, I mean, I could really get into it, but I think that every time this shit happens is because those are not people who actually give a fuck about music, because I'm listening to the music. Like, what you look like, any person playing anywhere, is always secondary to how you throw down while I'm listening to you.
Yeah.
You know
Totally.
what I mean? But that's just me, and I get that what we're talking about is a very real thing. But it's frustrating. I think that there's a lower order of listening, and people need to raise their self so I don't have to keep lowering my expectations.
Yeah. Well, and I would even say, too, for people that don't want to expand their worldview or their palette of, you know, different kinds of people that they would, you know, enjoy in music, you're kind of challenging a lot of different perceptions already. You're, you know, playing a masculine form of music, which there's plenty of great, you know, female musicians in metal, but that aside, you're challenging sort of those expectations. You're playing drums, so like you said, kind of a masculine physical instrument stereotypically. And you have your past history of like, if people look up anything about you, they're going to find that as well. So you have all these different things of just challenging somebody's expectations of what life should be like. And if they're not really prepared to deal with that, then they might have the reaction of, oh, she's pretty good for girl drummer, and it's like, no, she's good. Period. That's the end of the conversation, you know. And
Well,
Right.
I'm very much in the frame of mind that if they're gonna hold that against her and us, then we're not interested in working with them. Period. Like,
yeah,
it's
Yeah.
not a big deal at all.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, and
No,
I think that's a good way to go about it. And you know,
No segue.
yeah,
You took too long. You took too long.
Yeah. And you had
Well,
mentioned
thank
earlier, like,
you.
not trying to get too deep, but that's like one of the parts about this podcast I enjoy is when we can get into these sort of deep conversations.
Good. I'll dive as deep as you want to go.
Yeah. So
right?
I want
more to delve into.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you this because in doing some research going into this, you'd started playing drums, Felicity, when you were in elementary school, and you've continued to do that now, and now you're in Constraints of Light, and that's sort of your starting point and your point where you're at now. In between that and your journey, you had talked about, especially in your early 20s, that you were going through sort of an identity crisis of like, who am I, what am I about, and just figuring out your place in life. And through that, in getting into the adult industry, people can look it up if they want to, but you did some videos talking about some more, I guess, exploitive situations that you were in, and like some videos that you regretted shooting. And again, not trying to focus on that, but if people want to look it up, they can. You've gone through this tremendous journey to get to where you're at right now. And music was kind of a through line through all of that, and that you continued to play drums even despite whatever career changes you were going through, life changes, questioning who you were, where you were at in, the universe. Now that have this band where you have your sort of musical soulmate of I click with this person, and that's a gift to have. You have the different career paths that you're on in nutrition and music and things like that. How did music keep you sort of grounded and sane through all of the crazy stuff that you were going through?
That's an awesome question. Well, you said something before that I was gonna, I'll use actually as a kind of segue into this, because when you were saying, facing multiple types of challenges, as an artist,
Yeah.
because people are viewing me this way or whatever. I have always been able, thankfully, to use that negativity as fuel to actually make me work harder. Instead of, because I mean, I'm not gonna try to be like a victim, but I've been bullied a lot, like throughout since 18, 19. I mean, I've faced bullying and harassment every day. I mean, if mainly online, but
Yeah.
so it's something that I've like kind of grown callous to over the years, and I realized like, okay, this negativity coming from people like that, it's because they feel inadequate with their own lives most of the time, if not 99% of them. And they're taking it out on me because I genuinely love life and I'm doing what I want to do and I'm not afraid of what people think. And sure, like, no one wants to be judged and not liked. Like, I like to be liked by people and I want to make people feel inspired. I have good intentions is what I'm saying. And I think that people that genuinely see me and what I'm about, they realize that like I have good intentions as a person and I'm just trying to live my life as fulfilled as possible and inspire people along the way. Like, that's all I want to do. And that's a big reason why I work in nutrition, because like I love helping people. I genuinely love that. And I'm not like, I don't have this selfish outlook like, oh, I want to be rich and famous. It's like, no, like I want to have a great life and be happy and make as many other people happy along the way. Like that's what I want to do. And as far as like music, I have a lot of energy, a lot of inner fire. I always have since I was a kid. And I have always needed outlets, physical outlets, sports, I was always outside exploring, hiking, walking, I'm a very physical person.
Yeah.
And drumming just fit in that criteria. I mean, it was just another physical outlet, but I was also able to utilize my brain and muscle memory and my creativity. So to me, it's like this trifecta of being able to get all this energy out. And over the years, it became like a meditative thing for me, you know, where it wasn't just like frustration, but it was just like, and I would practice and I felt so good afterwards. Like, you know, I would even doing rudiments and like reading my, cause I love to read music. So, you know, even reading all my old books from early on, you know, in my drumming career, and going through these snare drum solos and playing and incorporating them into my practice, it felt so great. I felt productive. I felt like I was growing. And it was helping other areas in my life. So I just always kept doing it. Just like, you know, I became a certified yoga instructor. So same thing with yoga, right? Like yoga is a great outlet for me to kind of balance my masculine energy, bring more of like my feminine side out,
Definitely.
calm me down, center me. Drumming is more like expanding my energy and getting the fire out. Yoga is more about grounding. So like I've just constantly looked for ways to keep me sane and stable in this life. Like when I first moved to LA, my life was insane. Like I was living out of a suitcase. I was, you know, I owed the DMV like $10,000 because I got my license revoked in New York for evading the police on my motorcycle. Like my life was insane when I moved here. And I had to start like from the ground up. And my goal was not like, oh, I want to be famous, you know? Like, no, my goal was, no, I gotta fucking get my shit together.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna stabilize my life. Like that was my goal. And so drumming was like this safe net, this like safety net for me, as far as stabilizing my life. So
Yeah.
for me, you know, that's how I view drumming and music. It's like literally a solace. It's a place of nurturing my creativity.
Yeah.
Are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. Your video went away.
Oh,
Are we back now?
we're definitely still here. It says start. Yeah, looks like our video's out.
Hold on
Okay.
1 second.
Blink, blink, blink. Throw up your hands.
Oh,
Hit it on that thing.
like half asleep.
We back now?
Did that do it? That's not the right camera. Oh, did the camera battery go out or something? Is that why?
It said battery low.
Because now we're on.
Okay, we can just keep going on audio
All right,
if
let's
that's
just keep
cool
going
with you.
audio. Jesus Christ,
We're
already.
still recording on our end, so
Okay, cool.
cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, basically, you know, I used it as a way to keep me centered, and I enjoy it. You know, it's not like I'm like, oh, I have to go to practice. Like, it's like, no, I look forward to that, you know, because I get to hang out with some of the closest people to me. I get to make music. I got to have fun. You know, I mean, that's how I look at it as music. Like, music should be fun. Like, music should be an outlet for people to get their energy out and their creativity. I mean, once
Yeah.
it feels like a chore for people, I think then you need to start questioning, you know, why is it you're doing it? I mean, like, I understand, like, if you're a serious professional musician, you're going to be doing gigs that you don't always want to do, but, you know, you should try to always
Yeah.
make the most of it.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
You should.
Yeah.
I wish I was better at that, but I'm gonna remember that you said that when I feel like that at the next gig.
Yeah. No, that's definitely some wisdom that everybody could take to their next gig. Especially you're doing more. I don't really do the cover band thing much anymore, but you're still
No,
in
but
that
that's why.
world.
Why wouldn't I be pissy? Because I would do cover bands for a living. So who wouldn't be a cranky bitch, right?
Right. Yeah. You get a little bit cranky sometimes.
Especially, I mean, you know, I'm Puerto Rican, so
Yeah.
I'm always loud.
Yeah.
Well, and
And you know, if I could just, I'm going to add one thing too, because
Oh,
I
yeah,
found
please.
this to be very valuable information. I won't like name drop, but I was touring with this pretty famous metal band, and when I was like 25, and I was seeing the drummer, you know, and he told me, and this is, you know, a very successful drummer, and he said, you know, day in and day out, like when I'm touring and doing all this stuff, I feel like a circus animal, like just performing and doing things, and I'm expected to do this and I'm expected to do that. And he's like, all I'm saying is you should always do music because you love to do it, but also make sure that you have your bases covered and you have other sources of income too, because you really never know what's going to happen down the road. And I mean, COVID is kind of a perfect example of this.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not trying to say like, don't pursue music 100%. Like, by all means, do it and follow your dreams and follow your passions, but also have a sense of realism and realize that, you know,
the economy and life, it's really difficult to solely make a great income from music and entertainment.
Yeah.
So be kind of logical and business about it as well, and make sure you have
other streams of income to just kind of keep you afloat, and so you're not stressed out. I mean, I found that like to be so helpful, like just navigating through this life, you know. And Steven's the same way. I mean, Steven has a full-time job, and you know, that was actually a big reason why we also connected, because he had his shit together. I had my shit together. So we got together and we're like, okay, let's fucking play music, you know, and get this going. And because like all the other areas of our life were kind of secure, you know, and we could rely on each other, which was great because, you know, as you guys know, like a lot of musicians, I hate to say it, they're kind of all over the place. Like they, you know, don't, you know, like some of them don't even have a car. They can't drive to rehearsal, or, you know, they don't have money
Or
to
they can't
pay.
drive the car no more.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
so having like a fellow bandmate that has their shit together is a huge relief.
Yeah.
And knowing that like I can count on him and he can count on me to like get shit done, that's an awesome feeling.
Yeah.
So
Us both liking structure and
Yeah.
being able and like sticking to a schedule.
yeah.
It's very comforting to be playing with a like-minded person.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Having a bit of like a sense of routine, you know, like I'm not a complete creature of habit. Like my days vary every day, but I have certain things that I do that are somewhat routine like, but that's helping me. I mean, our brains are wired to like search for routine. And as a drummer, especially, you know, I try to do, when I'm practicing by myself, I try to do things that are rooted in the foundation of drumming, you know, where I'm warming up my hands, I'm doing some rudiment stuff, I'm, you know, practicing the double bass. And it's really sometimes boring, static stuff, you know, that if anyone was listening to me practice, they'd probably be like, shut the fuck up. But, you know, it helps me as a drummer, like get my core foundation skills up. And so then, you know, I'm able to utilize my creativity in other ways, like when I'm actually called to do it. So I don't know. That's just like some advice that I was given. And I think that anyone playing music could really benefit from, just to like have a better life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, I mean, it's so great that you're talking about all that stuff, because there is this sort of stereotype that's brought on, I guess, to a certain degree by musicians, because there's a lot of times where you meet people that don't have their shit together, especially when you're starting stuff on some, like a local level and you're trying to meet people. It's like, you know, it can be hard to, you know, be in a band in that kind of environment. And I also feel, too, adding on to the identity thing, that I feel like if you go into, whether it's, you know, any sort of, you know, scene or industry, like whether it's the adult industry or the music industry, you're going to meet people that have certain habits that could be bad for you, and be around an environment that might be bad for you if you're not sure of yourself. And you can easily get lost in certain things that it's like, hey, this isn't why I got into this. You know, I got into this to play music with other people and have a good time. And then you get caught up in things if you're just kind of going into it willy-nilly that you know, may not have thought about.
Yeah, no, totally. I agree. And
I don't go.
unfortunately, I think like COVID has kind of created like more of this stigma around people that work in entertainment, because, you know, they're you know, musicians and artists, a lot of them are deemed as non-essential, and they're out of work, and, you know, it's like, oh, well, you know, you're not an essential worker, so it's like, it is what it is. And that's such a terrible feeling, you know, and it's like so disheartening to people that really work hard in those industries. And, you know, I mean, it's affected us. I mean, fortunately, like, you know, I have my other means of income, so like I can't say it's affected me that negatively. But you know, not being able to play shows and go to shows and support other musicians, like it's a huge bummer.
Yeah.
You know, but like we were talking about before, you just kind of got to take advantage of this time to be inwardly creatively and use this time to prepare for the future. So like when we can play again, you have material and you have new stuff. And another thing too is, since we're talking about stigmas,
Yeah.
you know, a big thing is like, I think a lot of the music industry, and also, I mean, just entertainment in general, there's a lot of involvement of partying and drugs like associated with these industries. And it's being someone that like works in nutrition, I'm like a huge health freak. Sometimes it's a really strange feeling for me to like be surrounded by people that are really reckless when it comes to their health and just constantly partying. And like, you know, I mean, my ex was in a band that was full of very unhealthy people. I'll just leave it as that.
Sure.
And I was surrounded by that all the time. And it was like this really strange contrast, you know, that I was constantly exposed with. And it's like, okay, you know, I'm like, I have this mindset where I'm like, I'm not going to judge these people if they want to live their life like that. Okay. But when you see people literally like damaging their bodies with their decisions and, you know, doing things because they love the feeling of being on stage and having that energy. And then when they're not there, they feel like they need to kind of compromise and get that high still that they're getting from playing music by doing drugs and drinking alcohol and partying, you know. And so I'm interested, like maybe eventually kind of inspiring more musicians to take control of their health and their decisions now, because, you know, you don't want to deal with health problems down the road. Like you should be aware of what's going on with your body now. Yeah. Because then when, like, you know, you're in your 70s, you're not like Mick Jagger, like spending all this money trying to be healthy. It's like, I don't know, like the whole like glorification of getting fucked up and partying and doing drugs. Like, I feel like that stigma needs to be broken. You know what I mean? Like people need to be more aware of just like health, like being healthy is sexy. Like being healthy is a good thing. And you're a better musician when you're healthy. You know what I mean? And that's something like has been frustrating for me, you know, as a musician that like cares about their health, when I'm working with other people that really don't, and they're like so tied into the whole party thing and musicianship.
Yeah.
I wish people were a little more aware about that. And Stephen, you know, doesn't drink and do drugs, which is like kind of a relief because, you know, it goes back to the whole like trusting each other thing. Like we know that he has his shit together, I have my shit together. We make responsible decisions, you know, so that's been a huge advantage too, being in this band together, making music. So I don't know your guys' thoughts on that, but like that's something, you know, I've thought a lot about, like, because I've toured with a lot of bands. I've been around a lot of musicians that just don't think about the consequences of their decisions sometimes, you know, because they're so caught up in this like party lifestyle.
Yeah.
And it's a shame. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. I have a couple different takes on it. I think I'm in both camps of I play in bands, but I also work for bands. And like the bands that I work for are way bigger than the bands that I play in, where like the bands that I work for are doing like, you know, either, you know, mid-sized clubs or like small theaters, things like that. Occasionally I've done amphitheaters and big gigs, but then, you know, they're kind of all in the old school field of things. So they've gotten their partying kind of out of the way, or it's really, really, really like, you know, they'll have like maybe, they have a shot before they play, but they're not getting hammered. They're not, you know, they're not really doing anything because they're all taking care of themselves and they're all, you know, relatively healthy. And they're also like, they got that out of the way when they were in their 20s, you know, and now they're still doing this in their 50s and 60s. And so it's like they're thinking about their longevity of, you know, being able to put on a good show and things like that. As far as on a DIY level, I think it's interesting because even like when you're a nobody band, people will come out of the woodwork and like offer you things because you're just playing in town that night. You're playing in Vegas on a Friday night and the bar's packed. So like somebody wants to like offer you stuff, and it's like, I wouldn't have expected this because we're just, we're playing on the floor in the corner next to the dart machine, but we're on tour. But people are still like, hey, you want to party with me and my girlfriend? And I'm like, no, you're skeezy. And it's weird because I feel that when you're working, that with that whole point, when you're working, I definitely get hired way more because I don't drink like a fish and I don't do drugs, and they know that I'm going to be sober and show up on time and not lose track of the gear and set things up, and like that's a benefit. As a musician, I only really play with people that don't party that much, so I don't really make it, it's not really an issue, and I don't get asked to play with bands that party a lot because they know that I'm kind of like, up at them, hey, let's go, it's like, and I'm not like still hungover from the night before, or I'm not like really drinking that much, and I don't know, it's weird because you can definitely, depending on your social circle, get involved in some negative people and situations, I think.
It's the nature of the game.
Yeah.
Takes
I'm
a lot of
like,
willpower.
I think that there's some truth in everything that's been said so far, but my extra little take is that God, what is it now? 8 years in recovery, and I'm definitely in recovery because I grew up playing music for a living. So I think that they're inextricably tied together.
Yeah.
And as we all know, the reality is that all of that stuff, addiction in the cycle is a disease. A lot of things are predicated on individual choice at certain points in the struggle too. That all aside, I really think what we're talking about is the people in the business side of the music industry have institutionally for decades now been using and manipulating artists by having drugs be a part of that culture. There was never a lot of drugs in popular music until the money went through the roof in the 60s. And then all of a sudden, all the people who owned labels had all of the A&R people and all of the reps and all the agents. All of a sudden, they're connected to drug dealers. And they're like, here you go. It's been, you did so good. It's been such a hard show. Here's a line. It's like, that's seriously
cool.
like, that's how a lot of people got introduced, all of your favorites and shit like that. So I think that there's like, if we don't speak a little bit about that, we're kind of missing just the edge of part of the discussion too. But that's all I gotta say.
No, that's a good point. That is. And I mean, I'm not trying to like endorse being straight edge or anything like that. Because like, I like to have fun.
Endorse it too.
Yeah, I mean, like, because I like to have fun, and once in a while, I party a little bit, and but my health is my number one priority, because like I know that if my health is not there, I'm not there fully. You know what I mean? And I can't deliver my best if my health is not 100%.
Yeah.
And it's a shame when you watch some of these bands, like these successful musicians, or I mean, maybe not even successful, but these talented musicians that make decisions that really don't help them progress, like in a healthy way, and then it interferes with their ability to play music or to be a productive band member. I mean, how many of us have experienced being in a band or jamming with someone that was an alcoholic or had a drug problem, and like it hindered the rest of the band. That's unfortunate. Like I have been in a band where like every fucking rehearsal they're drinking Jack Daniels and getting wasted. And I'm like, guys,
that's like what it was when we were kids. Like, so now the self-regulation is just great because there's nothing like that now.
Yeah.
We all drink bottled water and shit.
Yeah, I mean, it just gets to a point, like, and also, like, if you have to party to play music, like, if you have to get fucked up to play music, something's going on there. Like, you need to look at the root cause of that. If you feel like you can't let go fully as a musician to deliver your creativity unless you've got a few drinks in you or, you do some drugs, that's really sad. Because, I mean, like, it should just be a gift that you can express yourself and not have to rely on a substance to really let go. And I mean, I've seen this in the adult industry, too, where there's been performers where, like, I've been shooting, like, at a set house, and they're shooting, multiple scenes at the house that they're renting out. And everyone is getting fucked up. And, I'm like walking into the bathroom and people are smoking meth. I'm like, Jesus Christ, like this is a job, and people have to be drunk or taking Xanax in order to shoot. It's like, why are you doing this job if you have to get fucked up to do it?
Right.
Like, to me, that's nonsense. Like, it's like someone, working a desk job and they have to, bring a fucking pint with them of liquor, in order to get through the day. It's just like, come on, that to me just seems like there's this irresponsible stigma attached to music, and people need to be more aware about that,
Yeah,
That's fair.
Absolutely. And I do think it's because like we all don't want to have a 9-to-5 job of like being stuck at that desk
What a
job.
way to make a living.
Right. It's a matter of rebelling against that. So along with rebelling against that, it's like, oh, I'm just going to drink at 10 o'clock in the morning if I want to. And also, like, I've been in those tour situations where you show up to a town early and you get there and it's like there's nothing to do. So, hey, let's just hang out at a bar. And so it's like, what other occupation is it like, oh, I don't have to show up to work technically until like maybe 4 p.m. sound check or 8 p.m. show time. And we're hanging out at a bar at 11 o'clock in the morning. And so it's like, yeah, I wouldn't do that if I'm at home, but if I'm on the road, yeah, I might be, sitting there and then like, yeah, if I'm in the mood for it, I might order a beer. But it's like, you know what? You have to really check yourself and know where you're at just to not be like, yeah, I can drink all day long if I want to. Like, it's kind of gross. It's like, no, I don't want to be doing that. But sometimes you're in those situations and it's just, it's weird. And I feel like because you're already going against the grain of what you're expected to do, you have to like really, respect that. And it is a job and you do have to be responsible and, give people a good show, entertain people. And you can't do that when you're really fucked up. Like, you really can't do that.
And okay,
I mean, only a little facetiously can we all agree that weed is not part of this discussion. Weed is clearly not part of this discussion. Am I right, guys? All right, too soon. Never mind.
well, I mean, you kind of brought up a good point too, because I've thought about this a lot where
There's a cut point.
there's this duality that exists in entertainers, I feel, especially musicians, where say like you want to be a rock star, like that's your goal, it's your dream. People are so fixated on the feeling of playing live music, being on that stage, playing in front of all those people. Like you get a high from that is so hard to duplicate. And they're so focused on that, they don't realize like the life you also have that exists when you're not on stage. Right. And you see that in like comedians a lot too, where they get such a high being on stage, like because they're making people laugh and they're the center of attention and everyone loves them. And then they get off stage and they like can't deal with the normalcy of life. And that's something that I've really tried to like keep my ego in check always, because when you don't have that limelight or that high, from performing, you have to be comfortable with your life, like off stage too. And that's something that usually causes people to want to do drugs and to drink, and I feel like finding that stability in life, like having other outlets too that are healthy, that make you feel good is so important, and that's why like I'm a big advocate for health and like yoga and hiking and like just doing other things that make you feel good about yourself and, make you feel happy. So you're not solely relying on that one thing to feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of musicians or entertainers like fall into that trap where, they get so addicted to that high of being on stage and then like they don't have it anymore. And they're like, oh, well, I got to keep it going. I need to fulfill this in some other way. But there's other outlets you can do, So I don't know. I think that's something like I really want to promote more, like just to make people make help them make healthier decisions when it comes to like navigating through life, like working in entertainment and music and whatnot. Because I mean, I've experienced it a lot, but I fortunately, don't really have an addictive personality, and like I don't really subject to peer pressure. So it's never really affected me like too much, but I will say, like, when I first moved to LA and I was starting to make some money and I was working a lot, and I was going backstage and all these shows, and it was hard for me to really keep my ego in check sometimes because I'm like, whoa, I'm like getting all this attention and
Right.
it's awesome, but as soon as I ever let my ego get to my head, the universe would slap me in the face and something would happen, where it like gave me a reality check. And I was aware enough to like see this and be like, whoa, no matter what I do, like I have to stay humble. I gotta always keep my fucking humbleness no matter where I am in life. And sometimes people lose sight of that. And I think that's when they really start making poor decisions, is when they lose like the ability to be humble. So yeah, sorry, I'm rambling, but like that's something I feel really strongly about. And that's why like staying grounded and down to earth, it's so important, like working in the entertainment industry.
Yep. Totally agree. Unfortunately, we do have to wrap up, but thank you both so much for joining us today and sharing your experiences with the band and all of that. I think it's, I don't know, hopefully this conversation does sort of awaken that, sort of urge to be healthy in people.
Can't hurt.
Can't hurt.
Being healthy can't hurt.
That's for sure.
That's a t-shirt.
Real quick, anything you wanted to plug, your socials, like all that fun stuff before we wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, my website's just felicityfuel.com. My Instagram's Felicity Feline Official. Twitter's Felicity X Feline. Our band is Constraints of Light. You can get the new EP on pretty much all mainstream, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Bandcamp.
Sweet.
So I mean, check it out.
Yeah, we're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
Great. Cool. Well, awesome. Thank you again so much and for taking the time to talk to us. And yeah, we'll definitely be sharing the band and spreading the word and getting people to check you guys out.
Quite.
Yeah, and likewise, cross promotion, free networking.
Cool.
Thank you guys.
Awesome.
Thank you guys.
Maximum Max Taylor.
Baby, hell yeah. Say baby, hell yeah. Okay, we can't use any much more of that.
Yeah. That'll be interesting to see what Max has written because we never know what it is. It's
now it's gonna have to match my flatness.
Yeah, Max, you have to match his
Go
flatness.
to F sharp, Max, and then go down about 3 cents.
Tune it down
and
to his
tune
flatness.
your keyboard and do stuff to it. Thank you.
Well, that was great. I loved getting to hear her take on things, and I love how this is something I think needs to just be a example that's shown to everybody. If you have weird shit that you're uncomfortable about, it doesn't even have to be anything like her story. If you just have weird shit that you're uncomfortable about, own it and face your fears and put it out there. Like maybe you're afraid of talking on camera and making awkward hand gestures about things and you're worried about, you looking awkward. You only overcome that by starting a podcast and filming yourself consistently. And now I'm not really afraid of that anymore. And if I look awkward, well, I am awkward, and that's okay.
See, listen to that. That's a real progression.
Yeah.
I mean, in a short amount of time. So that's pretty cool to hear that.
It's getting better.
No, I mean, it's like, I hope it's as much as you're saying, because it's like, I wish I experienced anything in that sense of a consistent sort of trajectory. What I'm working towards accepting at this late stage is the furiously just circuitous nature of my existence.
Ooh, that's a good word.
It has probably something to do with the mood disorder that I've been, managing for 30 years now. It's just my understanding of things is that I go through these intense moments where everything is inherently valuable and tangible and now, and everything is potential and great and good. And then in the next moment, it is always the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Which wasn't the point, but.
Well, no, it's things like this get you thinking about other aspects of your life. Because you hear somebody talking about putting themselves out there. And then, for me anyway, just not putting it on necessarily everybody's point of view, I look at it like, oh, wow, that's interesting. I've had to put myself out there too. it might not be in the same context, but it's all about growing as a person. And so she has a whole story of growth where it's like, I started here, had a crazy life, when I first moved to LA, meeting people, being in the adult industry, also being in the music business and trying to be in bands, trying to figure out who she is. And I think about that in terms of my own life of, well, I've been at points where I try to figure out who I am. And it's valuable just knowing what other people have been through. So that way it kind of like, you could see where all the paths are on the map. And even though you're carving out your own path, you know how other people have done it. And so like when you hit moments of like adversity or like weird things that happen, life throws you a curveball, you remember these stories that you hear sometimes and they just kind of stick in your mind and you go, like, this is okay. Like, life is going to be crazy.
That's being inspired, right?
Yeah. And that's, for that, like, along with wanting to share conversations that I would have in private with people, it's also like, I want to learn too. I want to be able to, there's going to be new pieces of information I might not have otherwise. So it's all mental notes and like, me trying to.
Where? Up here?
Specifically this area right here.
You keep it right above your left eyebrow for some reason. Okay.
This is the prefrontal
distillate.
Yeah,
I don't know what's in there.
There's a free frontal hot pocket right there.
Yes.
Yeah, that's where all the nuggets of inspiration are stored.
Yes.
These are the songs that I remember. These are the songs I still need to work on and commit to memory. This whole lobe is dedicated to music references.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
That's very insightful.
Yeah. A lot of storage.
So now I know where to hit you if I want to get rid of one of those aspects of your personality.
If you don't like a movie reference I've thrown out,
I'm
you
going
pop me
right
on
for that
side
upper
of the
right
head.
side, guys.
Yeah.
No more Caddyshack, man.
Oh, dude. Don't. It's one of the greatest movies of all time, man. Come on.
It's one of the
We're not
movies
gonna
of all
do this in the
it's
outro,
one
are we?
of the movies of all time.
It happens to be in
It happens
the
to be
category
like
of
from
greatest.
start to finish. But I mean, do I watch it every time it's on? Yeah, because Rodney Dangerfield is, I'm a comedy nerd and he's still one of my cats. Like, I'll still go back and watch that old shit.
Yeah. That line I use all the time when he's in the not the bait shop. This isn't Grumpy Old Men. This is Caddyshack. When he's in the golf shop and, the judge is like looking for stuff. He walks in, I'll get a box of those, 3 of those, 2 of those. And then he points at the hat and he goes, it's the worst looking hat I ever saw. You buy a hat like that, you get a free bowl of soup. The judge is glaring at him and then he goes, looks good on you though.
Yeah, it looks good on you though.
With the giant eye roll and the eye. Yeah. I use that all the time.
Yeah.
Like in a situation where I feel there is a giant eye roll necessary.
Yeah.
Just, I will say, it looks good on you though, and then roll my eyes. Like, it's just, it's applicable to so many things, as in all aspects of that movie.
It's mad applicable.
Yeah. So,
hey, no, man.
we got to get somebody from Caddyshack in on this podcast.
They're all dropping like flies.
Yeah, but somebody. I don't know. Danny Noonan. Bill Murray.
He's not. Is that cat still around? What's
I think
his
he
name?
is. If he's, I don't know.
We need to stop doing that. Homie had a real name. His name's not Danny Noonan. He hates that shit. I know that.
No, I've seen that in interviews. He hates that too. Well, we
hates
can
that shit.
cross that off the list.
We'll leave it in the edit right now. But later when we talk to the cat.
Sir, I'm sorry if you see this.
I'm
sorry.
we know. We saw you on Roseanne, dog. We know who you are.
Yeah. Well, Bill Murray would be the ultimate get. That would be pipe dream, one of the greatest guests of all time. Getting to talk to him.
I sat down with the ex and her fam last night because I was picking up the boy and watched Christmas Vacation with them.
Oh.
Remember? Have you ever done that? Have you just sat down with friends and family and watched that silly old movie?
Yep. Every year.
I actually laughed at a lot of parts that I'm like, I knew that was coming, but I laughed because they were really, it was good.
Yep.
That's about as like warm as I'm gonna get right now. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's good. Bringing it together.
I sat down in a room with people and watched a movie.
Yeah,
successfully.
Speaking of sitting down in a room and watching a thing, that's what you're doing right now. And
Look at you.
Thank you so much.
Way to fucking go.
There are so many podcasts and people doing stuff and things where you have to watch them or listen to them. And the fact that you're here supporting us citizens, it means the world to us. So thank you very much.
And it also means that you're cool because you don't always need all that. You don't always need to be like paying attention. You're comfortable listening to a podcast where you can zone in and out for large chunks of time, like when I'm talking.
Whatever you want to do.
However you want to do it.
It's your podcast too. You're a part of this journey.
Just make sure you chug it. You got to poke a hole in the middle and chug it.
Shotgun
the episode, bitches.
Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Sonic City Council was created by Jesse Davidson and Davey Sipes and engineered by Max Taylor at Desert Sound Studio in Palmdale, California. Thank you to Disaster Cabinet for the outro music. Intro music written by Max Taylor. Sonic City Council is produced in association with Amped Music Academy and the Showcase Venue. For more information, visit theshowcasevenue.com.